Hi Booktube. I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Read Stuff. I am in the book shack, but it's cold. I've turned the heater off because it was a bit noisy. Um, Firstly, an apology. I was going to do some more content in the week, and the week got away from me. So I didn't do that, but I am back today with my usual Sunday weekly wrap up, and we've got a fair few books to talk about this week. It's not been a bad reading week. First of all, this Chunky Monkey that I am group reading, I'm about a third of the way through now, so I'm not quite where I should be. Um, but it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm loving the characterizations. One thing I'm not loving, why do Russians have so many names? It's unnecessary. Everybody's a prince. Well, apart from the women, of course, they're all princesses. But everybody has three names at least, and then half a dozen nicknames. It takes a bit of thought process to keep up. But I am loving it, and I am wondering why I've never read it before. So that's taken up some of the week, but the rest of the week has been taken up mainly with the challenges that I'm doing this month. I've tried to double up where possible. So I think, we'll start with this. Now, one of my personal challenges for this year is every month to read something either by an author or read a genre that I've never attempted before. This also ties in with my Around the World project. This is The Ice Palace by a Norwegian author called Taye Vesaas. Vesaas? One of Norway's most famous authors, apparently. I'd not heard of him. I don't know where I must have picked this up in a second-hand shop purely on the basis that it said, well, you can't see, Penguin Modern Classics on there. Taye Vesaas died in 1970. Uh, he is quite prolific by all accounts. He was born in 1897. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize for Literature no less than 57 times. 57. He didn't win it, but to be nominated 57 times is it's incredible. The Ice Palace is a story of two young girls, Un and Sis, and they come across each other quite accidentally. They live relatively near to each other in a rural area of Norway, um, and they are attracted to each other. There is something between them that makes them want to be friends. They go to the same school where Un tends to stand on the sidelines, and Sis is involved with all her friends at school. She's very active. She's very popular. Um, but she wants to be friends with Un. She's completely obsessed by this young girl. Eventually, the two of them do get together for a chat at Un's house, where she lives with her aunt because her mother has died and she doesn't know who her father is. But the very next day, she decides that she's going to skip school and she's going to go off to what the children call the Ice Palace, which is in the middle of a Norwegian winter, a frozen part of a waterfall on the river that goes through their village. And she makes her way into this ice structure and gets lost and stuck and dies of hypothermia. And the rest of the book is about how Sis reacts to that, and her guilt, and her sense of loss, and how she tries to take Un's place rather than trying to become herself again. And it's really interesting. It's beautifully written. Um, there isn't actually there isn't actually any sort of answers to the questions that you might think of as you're reading the book. But I thought it was lovely. It was atmospheric. Um, the writing is beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. So that ticks off one of my read around the world books, because the Sass was apparently a leading literary figure from Norway during the 20th century. Let's move on to banned books. 24 and 24, brainchild of MJ at Reading This Life. Something that I was very keen to take part in. First up, one of the most banned books of all time. 1984, George Orwell. I've read it before. I bought this copy last year because I just really love the cover. For anyone who's read it, this is a dystopian novel was published in 1949, about how a population can be subdued, basically. And one of the reasons it was banned, it has been banned in places like Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, Cuba. In fact, Animal Farm, apparently, by George Orwell, is still banned in Cuba. It's also been banned in many countries where they have a government regime that could be said to be oppressive. And this is about oppression. One of the other reasons it's been banned is for the sex scenes, and really, no. There are sex scenes in here, but they are very, very tame. They're not overwritten in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, our hero in this is Winston Smith. Winston Winston has vague memories of things that in this wonderful world of Oceania, which is ruled over by Big Brother, are frowned upon. There are four ministries that rule Oceania, and one of them is the Ministry of Truth. Doesn't seem to be very keen on the truth. The truth changes. One of Winston's jobs is to rewrite the truth, and make sure that the universally accepted truth is adhered to. So sometimes Oceania is at war with Eurasia, but the following day they might be at war with East Asia. And therefore, all references about being at war with Eurasia are removed, and everybody pretends they don't happen. People are written out of their lives. This is a very dark book, and it is prophetic. They have television screens that shout nonsense at you. We have those. Fake news is pretty much par for the course. Yeah, I remember people talking about fake news. It's a brilliant book. I say this is a reread for me, but I haven't read it for many, many years. And every time I read it, I am struck by how brilliant it is. But it was banned and is constantly being challenged. It still often appears on the list of banned books. My second banned book, I was very surprised to find this on a list of banned books. It's the children's classic Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. And I was saying to my husband, why on earth would you ban Black Beauty? And he said, well, it was obviously because it's got the word black in the title. I said, don't be so ridiculous. Nobody does things like that. You know, black is well, it's not a colour, is it? It's all colours mixed together. But he was partially right. It was banned in South Africa during apartheid, not just because it had the word black in the title, but because it had the word black next to the word beauty. Now, it's a book about horses, but irrespective of that, it's outrageous that anyone should ban a book on that basis. Anyway, Anna Sewell, young English author. This, I think, was published in 1877. She actually died. She had been invalided for many years. She died in 1878, following year after publication. This book is thought to be one of the first ever written from the perspective of a non-human. So it's written from the perspective of the horse. And it is a very early book about the treatment of animals, or more importantly, the mistreatment of animals. And it is a book that campaigns against the mistreatment, specifically of horses. It's a book I read when I was about 9 or 10, I guess. I have no interest in horses whatsoever. In fact, I went for 2 riding lessons. A horse stood on my foot. That was the end. I wasn't going again. But the book captured my imagination because it's very cleverly done. And it's about injustice and mistreatment and how you should treat people, horses, animals generally, with kindness and respect. And it's a very, very good children's book. And I'm glad I read it. And I can't believe anyone would put a book called Black Beauty on a banned list. Thoroughly enjoyed those. Next up, what do we have next up? The Scenic Route by Christina Baker Klein. I read this as part of the Kindle clean out, and the reason I read it, the prompt I read it for, was author you'd never read before. I actually did something different this time, in that it's in my Kindle, but it said it had audio. So I thought, why not try? I don't listen to audiobooks. Why not just give it a go? And I decided that by doubling up with doing other things, mindless things like, cleaning the bathroom or changing the bed sheets, etc., etc. If I listened to it while I was doing that, A, it made the chores easier because I don't like them, and B, I could concentrate on it without falling asleep. If I listen to something without doing something else, I'll fall asleep. So I'm quite glad I did it. When it gets to this stage, it was the only book, incidentally, on my e-readers that had audio with it. So when I can get to buying books again, I might investigate more audiobooks and see how I get on with those. As an author, I mean, it was okay. It was a book about a mum who was divorcing her. Her husband had run off with a younger woman. She had one child. She'd lost another child. She went into a bit of a meltdown. Ended up losing her home, her job, custody of her son. and downward spiral, buys herself a van and lives the van life for a while. And then a few years down the line, the son and her are reunited, but the son's in a bit of trouble as well. It was quite good. I'm not going to be searching her out anytime soon because there's too many other things I do want to read. But it was okay. The second one on my that I actually read on my Kindle was the most recent book that I'd bought, and that I had bought specifically for Historathon 2024. Now, all of these events, I will put all the information down below. This was called Scenes from Prehistoric Life by Francis Pryor. Francis Pryor is a very well-respected archaeologist, UK archaeologist, and he has made and presented documentaries. He was also one of the archaeologists on a very long-running and well-known archaeology series in the UK called Time Team. And this was great. He took, was it 14 different scenes? And it wasn't just one scene. He talked about places where prehistoric evidence of prehistoric life had been found, but that there were other similarities as well. So in one chapter he talked about caves. In another chapter he talked about reclaiming wetlands. And he used a combination of archaeology, anthropology, and together with ecology and geology and geography to illustrate what prehistoric life was like in a certain place or in certain places at a certain time. He is, like I say, very, very well respected. So it's authoritative, but it also looked at how things may have changed since the first time some of these places had been excavated. So some had been discovered and were excavated, can't speak today, excavated during the 19th and 20th centuries, and then later excavated again, where a different story was deduced from the evidence they had because scientific improvements and various other research came into play. Really good, really good, and I can certainly recommend it. The other things, I'm back to my cheating and my little black books I read were these. Now, I'm still reading around the Historathon Quarter 1 time period, which is prehistory to 500. And so, although this doesn't count, I don't think, as a work of history, this is the legend of Jason and Medea as told by Apollonius of Rhodes. And it's just an excerpt, again. That's what these little black classics are all about. I enjoyed it. I didn't find any issues with the language. I know the story. But yes, very interesting. Bit of fun. This one, I think, would count towards Historathon Q1. This is Socrates' defense when he is accused and sentenced to death for basically his teachings to the young people of Athens. Now, Plato, who it says authored this, was a pupil of Socrates, but also he was at the trial, at Socrates' trial. And this is done in three parts. First of all, Socrates addresses the one of the accusers, one of his accusers. Then he addresses another accuser, and then he talks to the jury and the court after a sentence of death has been brought down on him. It's fascinating, and because of that, I've picked up. I've got a little book, one of those. What are they called? Oxford Short Introductions to Ancient Philosophy, which I'm going to be reading. I'm also buddy reading SPQR with John David and Stephanie Cohen. That's by Mary Beard. Not quite as far into that as I thought, which is a bit of a shame because we're having a chat about it later. And 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. I'm hoping to get some more of the bigger books sorted out today. Not today, this week. I don't think I've done too badly though. That now puts my Read What You Own challenge. I've read 62 out of the 100 that I said I would read. 38 to go. That what I wasn't pausing just because I couldn't work that out, because I could work that out. I am really getting twitchy now. I think if I do the Read What You Own challenge next year, I might set myself a deadline. So I will read as many books that I own before buying any more until the end of December or something. Because there's lots of things going on, and I keep looking at wonderful recommendations from booktubers and thinking I really want to read that. But I've only got 38 to go. I'm planning that should be finished by the end of February. We'll see how he goes. If I keep reading these, it could be finished sooner. Who knows? Anyway, that's it for me. What have you been reading? Are you taking part in any of these events? Be very interested to see what you're up to and what you think about them. Pop any comments in the chat below. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new to this channel. Thank you to my lovely subscribers, and I plan to be a bit more organised this week, and I'm really hoping I'm getting a midweek video up. We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for stopping by. Happy reading.